everyone. Welcome to Marketing for Designers podcast. I'm your host, Masha Coyne, a messaging strategist and a copywriter for the interior design industry. I've been marketing for what feels like forever in my past career at some of the biggest global firms like KPMG and Deloitte. Today, I write website copy for designers using my signature voice of customer framework. If you're a designer looking to up your marketing game and attract premium clients, this podcast is for you. Each week on the show, we're going to be talking all things marketing, from branding to messaging to social media, SEO, and so much more, so you can have all the tools you need to grow your business and attract your dream clients. Welcome back to Marketing for Designers podcast. Thank you so much for being here. So typically on this podcast, I share information about all things marketing. I should say all things marketing for interior designers. So I interview various experts on all things marketing like SEO and brand strategy and graphic design and website design and all those things. But today's episode is going to be a little different. This episode will be interesting to someone who is currently going through a rebrand. So that's you. I think you'll find this episode interesting. If you're currently going through a rebrand, if you're considering doing the rebrand, but want to prepare yourself and kind of better understand what's involved and who's involved in that kind of process. If you find yourself in a position where you're not attracting the right kind of client and you want messaging, you realize that you need to change something, and chances are it is messaging on your website and in your marketing to make sure that it's not only attracts the right kind of client, but it also connects with them emotionally and also kind of is in line with your brand voice. Because a lot of the times when I work with interior designers and they fill out my client questionnaire, the things that I get from them in terms of what's not working is, the copy just doesn't sound like me, doesn't feel like me. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today's episode is all about what's it like to work with a professional copywriter on your interior design website. So I'll start off by introducing a little bit about who I am. So my name is Masha. I am a messaging strategist and a website copywriter specifically for interior designers. So I write exclusively for interior designers. And in the last few years, as I've been writing for interior designers, I developed a signature framework. It's called Reveal. It's a 6-step strategic framework for producing data-driven and brand-elevating website copy for interior designers. So Reveal stands for 6 things: research and discovery, extracting key messages, voice of customer, evaluating competition, architecture of content, and language and launch. So let's go through this framework step by step, just so you can understand what's involved and the reasoning behind me creating this framework. So I truly believe that when you write website copy, it needs to connect to your ideal client. It can't just be great writing. It has to connect, meaning it has to resonate with the right kind of client. And in order for that copy to resonate, it has to consider the pain points of your clients, their desires, their objections, what they feel. You kind of have to get into their head. And that's what this framework is all about. The key component of this framework, as I'll go through with that and you'll understand, is actually voice of customer data. So I interview your clients to better understand who they are and who you want to attract and what your copy needs to do in order to attract them. So let's go step by step so I can explain what Reveal stands for. So R stands for research and discovery. So in that first step in my process is where I'm learning about your brand, about your history, where you've come from, where sometimes, you started off as something else, not an interior designer. So it's important for me to understand all the things that you've done in the past and how they apply to you being the designer today. At this stage, I'm also doing a customer profiling and I'm identifying your key differentiator. So what is that thing that sets you apart? And if you don't exactly know what it is, my client questionnaire will help you understand and identify that key differentiator. The next step in the process is E for extracting key messaging. So what I'll do at this stage is I look at all of your marketing assets and I'll analyze them. So I'm looking at your existing website. I'm looking at your social media channels. I'm looking at the comments that are coming through, kind of taking a look at everything. And at this stage, what I'm doing is I'm trying to understand and capture your brand voice. How do you want to sound? What do you sound like? Because the whole goal of hiring a copywriter is to make sure that your copy at the end of the day actually sounds like you. So that's what I'm doing at this stage. The next step in the process is voice of customer. And that's the most important step. That's actually client interviews. So as part of my process, I'll actually interview up to 5 of your ideal clients. And that's where I'll try to understand, what are their pain points? What do they come to you with? What have they done prior to that? Like, what kind of challenge were they having? Besides wanting a beautiful home, what challenge were they experiencing when they started to look for an interior designer? And, I'll look at things like what made them choose, like the decision making that was involved in hiring an interior designer. Why you? Why did they hire you? Who else did they look at? What are some of the elements that were important to them in that process? So that's voice of customer data. And then, of course, I'll evaluate the customer data and try to understand what are some of the patterns that keep popping up. The next step in the process is evaluating your competition. And that's just a fancy word for competitive analysis. And I'm basically looking at up to 3 of your competitors and I'm reviewing, how do they position themselves on the market? Like what kind of messages do they have on their website? What kind of opportunities do we have for you to elevate your brand based on what I've seen your competitors do? The 5th step is the architecture of content. And that's actually one of my clients' favorite steps in the process. And that's basically a strategic outline of the content. So I am defining hierarchy of each message across all the core pages of your new website. So basically this outline will include things like, these are the key messages that will go on your homepage. These are the key messages that will go on your about page, on your services page. This is where we're going to have a call to action. This is where we're going to have a bit of a snippet about you. And then that will link to your dedicated about page or, portfolio. So things like that. That's basically an outline of content. And the good thing about it is because we get to align before I start writing your website copy, we actually get to align on what messaging goes where, and you get to sign off on this outline before I start the writing process. And then the last step, of course, is language and launch. And that's me writing your first draft of your website copy, and then we launch. So that's my framework reveal. So again, it's research and discovery, extracting key messages, voice of customer, evaluating competition, architecture of content, and language and launch. So now that we've covered my framework, let's actually go through the process of what's it like to work with a professional copywriter who specializes in the interior design industry. So let's say you've reached out to me via Instagram or my website and you filled out a form. I receive your lead inquiry. And then as soon as I do that, I send you back a link to schedule a discovery call. A discovery call, just like it is similar to your process, I'm sure, it's just for us to understand if we're a fit, if there's a vibe, because a lot of it is, I truly believe in chemistry. So a lot of it is just us getting to know each other, getting to know me, getting to know a little bit about your project, you getting to know about me, about my process and what's it like to work with me, and basically see if we're a fit. If that's a go, and after the discovery session, we'll take care of all the admin, which is I'll send you a proposal with my contract and with the invoice. That all goes to you from my Dipsato project management software, and that goes directly to you electronically. Very kind of streamlined, easy process. Once you take care of that, you are getting onboarded into my process. And as part of the onboarding, I send you a client questionnaire. This client questionnaire is a very comprehensive one. One of my clients actually called it like a therapy session because I dig deep. Like I go through everything from, who you are as a person, who you are as the brand, who is your audience, what's your audience like, what are they into, what are their frustrations, what are their desires. Then I get to know your competitors. I get to know your brand voice. I ask you things about how do you want to sound like in your website copy, what's important to you. There's a ton of questions about your audience, a ton of questions about your brand, a ton of questions about the key messages that we want that will then be displayed on your website, and of course your differentiator. So that's the client questionnaire. Once you fill it out, you send it back to me and I review. And that's, by the way, that's all done through Dubsado. Again, it's very easy. It's you get to fill it out online. You can come back to that form anytime if you don't want to do it all in one sitting. So a lot of my clients actually take time to fill it out. If you fill it out in one go, yeah, that takes about an hour to do that. But if you want to come back to it, think about it, you can do that, and all the answers get saved automatically in that form. So once you're done filling it out, I will review your form answers, and then I can come up with follow-up questions. And typically, I always come up with some follow-up questions. Sometimes I need to dig a little bit deeper. Sometimes I need clarifications on certain answers. Sometimes, sometimes clients provide me a lot of information. Other times it's just kind of surface answers, and I want to make sure that I have enough information from the get-go. So I'll review the form, and then I'll send you a link to a 60-minute strategy session. And that's where I dig a little bit deeper, or actually a lot deeper. That's why I ask you a lot more questions. I follow up, like I said, I follow up on some of the answers that you've provided me as part of the form. And we just talk about things, about your goals for the website. We talk about your audience a little bit more in depth. Yes, I will be talking to your clients as part of the process. So I will be getting their perspective, but it's also important for me to get your perspective on your clients and on your brand. At the end of the day, the website copy that you will get at the end, it has to align with who you are, with what feels authentic and right to you, and as well to your clients. So that's the strategy session. Once we've had our strategy session, I will review the notes. I'll put everything together and I'll send it back to you for review and sign off. And the reason why I do that is because sometimes maybe you want to include a few more details that you couldn't think on the spot and you forgot to mention something that's important. I want to give you an extra opportunity to add a little bit more to this strategy, to that kind of the project briefing phase of the project. So you'll get to review, add your comments, provide feedback, and then sign off. Once you signed off on strategy sessions, that's when I get to work. So as part of my client questionnaire, I will ask you to provide me with up to 5 of your best clients that you want me to speak with. So you've done that. You've sent out kind of like a heads up to them, and I can also provide you with a script to do that. You'll send them that email saying, hey, as part of my rebranding process, I've retained services of a professional copywriter who'll be reaching out to you to schedule these client chats. I never position them with your clients as client interviews because that sounds way too formal. And in fact, I position them as just like very informal client chats, 20 to 30 minutes. But these client chats are so important. That's where I get to know your clients. Not only I collect really great customer testimonials at the end of this process, but I also get to know what are their pain points. What was the original challenge they came to you with? What was the process of looking for an interior designer look like? Who else did they consider? Why did they end up picking you? Like what resonated? What resonated to them about you and about your process? What was their favorite moment throughout the whole project? What were some of the frustrations that they were experiencing? What did they enjoy the most in that process? The reason why I'm collecting so much data is because I want to make sure that the copy I produce at the end resonates with these kind of clients. And I also want to mention that it is best, obviously, that I speak with your ideal clients. But oftentimes, if you are going through a rebrand, that means something may not be working. Maybe you have not had a chance to work with your ideal clients. So I do want to mention that there have been numerous occasions where I've spoken with clients who were not the ideal clients. But this is still relevant data because what I'm getting there is their experience of working with you. So yes, we're getting the pain points, and while they're not the ideal clients, I'm still getting important data that we can then inject into your website copy because I'm getting their perspective on what's it like to work with you. What do people enjoy about working with you? What do you bring to the table from their perspective? So this is the data that I'm looking for. So once I've done the interviews, next is the research stage. And I am the researcher. Like I research until I'm blue in the face. That's my favorite process. That's my favorite stage in the process. I am looking at, like I said, when I was speaking about my framework, I am looking at all of your marketing assets, if you have any. I am looking to capture your brand voice. I've already obviously have heard you on the strategy session. So I've got the transcript open on my screen and I'm looking at your brand voice and I'm analyzing how you sound and how the copy will need to sound on your website. And I'm also doing the competitive analysis at this stage. So this is the research stage. So after all the research that I've done, I evaluate all the data I've collected through the client interviews and through my own research. What I'm looking for in this evaluation stage is I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking to pull out key messages. What are some of the pain points that keep coming up in, let's say I've spoken with 5 of your clients. Is there a pain point that keeps coming up? Is that the overwhelm of the project? Is it that they just wanted an expert to take control of the project? Did they want somebody to just come in like an outsider and help them kind of manage the entire thing? What I'm looking for is a pain points that overlap. The patterns, the similarities in desires your clients want. Typically, we do get 2, 3, 4, 5 key points that keep popping up. And if I do get those similarities and patterns, that's a clear indication that this is an important pain point or an important desire, and we'll need to communicate that in the website copy at the end. So this is the goal at this stage, is to pull out key messages for your brand. So once we've done the research and we've done the analysis, next is the architecture of content. In other words, it is the website content outline. So I put together an outline. The way it will look, it's kind of like page by page key messages with calls to action. And we hop on Zoom for this meeting. We hop on Zoom and I actually walk you through the entire outline. The reason why I do that on Zoom is because it's important for me and not just send it to you for your feedback, is because it's important to me to get your immediate feedback and we can make changes on the spot and you can communicate, yep, that's exactly how I pictured things on my homepage, things on my about page. Yep, this is the message that I want to have front and center on my website. So this is the time for me to get your feedback on the content outline. And at this stage, the reason why I do this before writing website copy is, like I said in the beginning, I want to make sure we're fully aligned and that there are no surprises at the end, because there's nothing worse when your copywriter sends you website copy and it's like a really bad surprise. It's not what you expected. It's not the messages that you wanted to lead with. So that's why I have this very important step in the process, which is the outline of the content before I write a word of copy. So once you review, and I give you time to review it on your own time and during the Zoom meeting, once you review the copy, you signed off on the outline, that's when I write the first draft of copy. So as you can see, there's 6 steps in the process. It's an 8-week process, but only towards the end, that's when I start writing copy. A lot of it is research. A lot of it is talking to your clients, really trying to understand them, looking at your competitors, looking at everything that you've done and everything that's important to your brand, before I write one line of copy. So following that, following your review and sign up, that's when I write the first draft. And then comes the 2 rounds of revisions. And then the very last step is the final copy with the SEO information. So I also provide, meta tags like H1, H2, all the SEO information that has to go into the copy. And the entire thing goes to my proofreader. I have a professional proofreader and every single project goes to my proofreader. And that's my 6-step, 8-week process in a nutshell. I hope this was informative. I hope this was interesting. I hope this gives you enough information to kind of prepare yourself if a rebrand is in the works for you, if it's something that you are considering doing. I hope this gave you an idea of what's it like to work with a professional copywriter. If you want to work together, the best way to reach out is to schedule a discovery session. So you can use the link in the show notes to book a call, or you can also follow me on my Instagram at masha.copywriter. I share a ton of tips there, but you'll also find a link in my bio in my profile. And because you've listened until the end of this episode, you know what to expect. I'll send you a link to book a call so we can get to know each other, and we'll take it from there. So that's that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Marketing for Designers. This is Masha Cohen signing off. See you next week.